Did something happen to you? After we got separated in that long hallway? Are you confusing me with someone else?
James, honey, did something happen to you? After we got separated in that long hallway? Are you confusing me with someone else?
You were always so forgetful.
You were always so forgetful. I'm not your Mary.
I'm not your Mary.
Are you taping again? Come on.
Are you taping again? Come on.
I'm here for you, James.
I am here for you, James.
See? I'm real.
See? I'm real.
We are living through an age of remakes, where all of your favorite games are taken, and the property is given to someone else who is no relation to the people that originally made it. While much is made of the censorship that these games embrace in the modern era, and the lacks that they have, while much is made of the graphical improvements, there's something that we cannot forget. These remakes are just that, remakes. And how can a remake be as good as the original if the people making it cannot make a game as good as the original? When we look at a game like Oblivion, which was farmed out to a different studio, but I'll even grant that it had Bethesda working on it heavily. If Bethesda was capable of making another Oblivion, they would have made Oblivion again. Instead, we see a series of downgrades as the company loses skill and talent year after year after year, leading to a perpetual cycle of stagnation, looking back at their past instead of their future, because they not have the skill to create a future, only to replicate the past. This is an inherent issue with remakes. Because if you're remaking something, that is an admittance that the people before you were better than you are. And if they were better than you are, why would I want to see what your take is on their work? This has been plaguing the gaming industry, and we are all worse off for it. Recently, we saw Silent Hill 2 being remade. Not a remake, simply as the series goes, but the most popular in the series, without any of the others being remade. And this, while it should have been a major milestone, was an absolute butchery of the original. It suffered from censorship.
This narrative is, it falls flat because the single most important person outside of James himself has been screwed up. Her flirtatiousness has been severely downplayed, her sexiness is essentially non-existent, and it's not just the midriff that's missing. We knew from the reveal of her that her sexual side would be toned down, even though it's crucial to her character.
And of course Maria's ambiguity, icy cold like death.
I'm not your Mary.
And suddenly sensual.
So, you're Maria?
I am. If you want me to be.
But little did we know that all the sexually evocative elements of Silent Hill 2 would be removed. Remember when Pyramid Head was seen holding a lying figure's head to his crotch before the boss fight? That's gone. Remember those disgusting orifices in Angela's nightmare with those really disturbing thrusting organs representing her abuse? Well, the organs are gone now. They're just holes in the walls. There was symbolism here. It's gone now. Silent Hill 2, the gold standard for how to integrate haunting images of sexuality into a horror game without it feeling exploitative and tasteless, has been censored to the point of having no sexuality at all. A lifeless Maria that taunts players by referencing her original outfit that this game wouldn't dare to use, an ending execution scene stripped of all its intensity, and the removal of dark sexual imagery. What's the point? As the director of the original game said,
everybody is thinking and concerning about, sex and death every day. And if we want to scare or shake or touch the users or spectators, then we have to think about sex and death deeply. Somebody died or monsters died. We try to mix erotic essence. This is kind of a visual and, core concept.
well, now all we have is death. Good job, Bloober Team, at missing the point. That's all I have to say on the story and characters right now. Let's get to the gameplay.
It suffered from completely changing the perspective. Instead of being a tank control, fixed camera horror game, it was a generic third-person Last of Us clone. It did not even resemble its original horror game self anymore, instead being a slow-paced melee action game instead of a psychological horror. The writing was downgraded, and even the visuals somehow look far worse than they did in 2001. I still don't know how they did that. Everything in this game was made to appeal to the lowest common denominator. Instead of the atmosphere guiding you towards all the items that are in the scene, they simply put white button prompts on it. The original had a beauty that no modern games have, because the original respected you as the player, to the point where it could seem obtuse but felt greatly rewarding to discover any of it. They would use the camera to guide the player, as well as James's head movements. However, in this modern incarnation, they simply put a white dot over everything, because they don't think enough of you to actually give you an opportunity to solve anything on your own. If you're bored, you might leave, you might quit. And so, instead of designing an actual competent game, with intuitive puzzle design that leads you to the clue, they simply said, we don't respect the player, as many modern games do. So you are so stupid that we need to mark out for you exactly where everything is, because you are too stupid to be challenged in any way, shape, or form. But it seems to be a common problem of many a modern game. Bloober Team was in charge on this remake, and Bloober Team, by their own admittance, was making bad games before, so it should be no surprise that they turned the greatest game ever made into one of their bad games. Because Bloober Team, if they had the skill to create games that were so great, they would not need to remake, they would simply create. Of course, this is the overarching problem affecting the entire industry. This affected Hollywood, though now it is seeping in to gaming, as gaming is very closely tied to Hollywood, retaining largely the same investors, and through enough time, the same writers. Basic techniques of optimization were completely abandoned. Well, Silent Hill 2 and the original, even Silent Hill 1, embraced the thick fog in order to hide buildings, to avoid a reliance on heavy LOD popping and grant higher visual fidelity. Silent Hill 2, the remake, decided it would have the fog. Volumetric fog, to be exact. And volumetric fog can look very pretty, though at a higher performance cost. But when you have the volumetric fog being even thicker than traditional, it should be able to hide the buildings. And it is, but they did it. As someone who frequently works within Unreal Engine, I know for a fact that they had to change one value, but they did not. Either this was an oversight, or there were so many layers of people to go through that they couldn't get it done or thought someone else had done it. And this was simply never done within the game, as you can see by installing a mod to remove the fog. A common thing that you hear is this being blamed on the corporations. It's the corporations' fault, they say. The game developer was given 10 times the budget to remake the game that came out 20 years ago. The game developer was given 3 times the time to remake the game that came out 20 years ago. It's their fault. There are no bad developers. There are bad artists. There are bad players. There are bad YouTubers. There are bad singers. There are bad carpenters. But there are no bad programmers. This statement is simply idiotic. Of course there are bad programmers. And there are good programmers. But many of the good programmers have either left or been elevated out of a programming role. The 2 famous examples from the 90s being John Carmack and Tim Sweeney, going back and forth in a perpetual battle with Unreal Tournament and Quake. Carmack left to join NASA and today works in AI, and Sweeney today is in a management role. This exemplifies the role and what happened to these programmers of old. Many of the old programmers either have elevated themselves out of that role or completely left gaming, as there is very little money in it, even compared to what there was. Any half-decent programmer would never choose to work on games. They would go somewhere where they could actually make money for the same effort. And as games become larger and larger, sacrificing pay to be 1 of 500 is not nearly as enthralling as sacrificing pay to be 1 of 5. Being 1 of 500, no one really cares if you're the guy who makes the plates for GTA 6. But if you're the guy who designs the levels for Doom or Quake, that's a whole different calculation. So today what we see is an industry that's been completely abandoned, where the programmers have left, and things like UE5 can magically double in performance over the course of a year. Optimization is completely left out of games and viewed as an afterthought, and we know this because, well, I'm hypercritical of the Doom series more than perhaps anyone on this platform. The modern Doom series, that is. It does show us something about optimization, and the optimization that we could have had. Doom and the id Tech engine as a whole have always been among the most optimized games in the industry. id Tech was the original renderware coming before UE5. And before that, what we had was hyper-optimized games made on the id Tech engine, games which still play great to this day. Because they were made by talented people. People who did not have to remake others' work, and instead could create their own. If I copy off of the smartest guy in class's test, he gets 100, and I get a 75. And I say I passed. I'm not smart. I copied off of the smart guy. That same thing today is being done with remakes such as the Resident Evil 4 and Silent Hill 2 remake. They simply copy off of the better things that came before them, downgrade the product, ship it out, and say, wow, it's an 8 out of 10 game that I made from a 10 out of 10 game, so therefore this is something to celebrate. Even games like Night Dive makes, which are minor overhauls, have a whole different problem of their own. While they suffer the same problem, the Kex engine being a problematic mess that runs about as well as a 600-pound man, it has a whole different issue. Pointlessness. You're paying $30 for barely an improvement, and in some cases it completely destroys the original. These Kex engine remasters do not work with existing mods. They do not work with existing source boards, and they do not work with existing multiplayer. In cases such as Quake 2, this remaster, as you would call it, offered little value and completely destroyed the game's multiplayer, fragmenting it into 2 spots, One for the remaster, which was compatible on consoles being the Switch, the Series X, the Xbox One, the PS4, and the PS5, and one being the original PC game. This split the community, and when a community that small splits, it dies, as there's not enough to sustain either side. A community like that of maybe 100 people, if you split it into 50 for each side does not get 50, they get 30. And once you have 30, you get 25. Once you have 25, you get 20. Once you have 20, you get 15. This eventually causes the death of games that were doing fine for 20 years before. We've seen this happen time and time again. While Night Dive gets large amounts of praise, their versions are, in my case at least, I have never found to be better than even slightly modded versions of the originals. Theoretically at least, the point of a remaster would be to bring it up to modern graphical standards. However, the only game I have found that actually exemplifies this would be the Mafia remakes. Those games having the problems of their own, being that they were made by people who could not create, only to copy. However, those are some of the few games that I've ever seen truly live up to this promise of remaking it to modern graphical standards. What you see with these games is they are not remade to modern graphical standards. They are remade to slightly better than the original. Even if I accept that Night Dive makes good remasters and these are a good thing, what benefit do I get if my 1993 game looks like a 1998 game? It still looks old as shit. What benefit do I get if my 2004 game looks like a 2006 game? It still looks like a 2006 game. This does not benefit me. You are butchering the original art style. You are sacrificing lots and lots of different things, and you are gaining little out of it. You're sacrificing your multiplayer. You're sacrificing your mod compatibility. You're sacrificing your source ports if you have them. And you gain nothing. The Quake 2 remaster was absolutely disgusting, and handled in one of the worst ways any game has ever been handled. The point of a remaster, in theory, is to preserve the original gameplay while bringing the graphics up to modern standards. Quake 2 had very good original gameplay, and the graphics had been personally worked on in NVIDIA to add path tracing and ray tracing to. All they would have had to do was modify it to accommodate the lighting and add higher resolution textures. We can see this in Quake 1. Quake 1 also has an RTX that was added to it, though this RTX was added after Night Dive had done their remaster, in quotes, though it was for the original version. This original version of Quake, with the path tracing involved, is absolutely stunning. Not just with the original maps, but even maps as old as 20 years look brand new when they can accommodate this lighting, because it was lovingly designed and crafted. If Night Dive had incorporated this, and redesigned even a few of the maps around this concept, and the levels of Quake were meant to be adapted to the lighting, this would be a game people are playing today. Instead, it was another remaster that was only sold to people who had fond memories of playing Quake years ago. And people like me who loved the series were left with nothing, because it was not made for us. It took away everything we loved about the game. And the one thing that remasters could give, which is nicer graphics, was not given. It simply ran worse for no reason. The graphics did not look better. Our maps that we loved to play did not work. Our mods that we loved to use did not work. When they had a perfect opportunity for some of the finest and best running path tracing of any game. It runs at 80 FPS on my GPU, the way I normally play games. For context, Cyberpunk running at the lowest settings without any dynamic lighting runs at 60. So this would have been a truly great example, and with minor tweaks they could have got there. Quake 2, being a heavily corridor-based game, would have been able to get away with the same things that Doom 3 did when it came out, using stencil shadows. This lighting would have been truly revolutionary and beautiful. It would have had the opportunity to embody everything we could ever want about the technology and do it at a high frame rate like it already does today. But it didn't. Because Night Dive did as they always do. They gave the bare minimum and shipped out a product barely distinguishable from even the laziest and most haphazardly created of mods that added nothing to the game while taking away all the beauty and charm as many remasters do. Because, like the rest of them, if Night Dive was able to create a game as good as Quake 2, Night Dive wouldn't need to be remaking Quake 2. Some of the most beautiful levels I've ever played in any game, even modern, are from that Quake 1, done with path tracing and made to look like even better than modern games. It looks 15 years ahead, despite being a game made in 1996, with maps from 2002 and 2004 and before, because this does not accommodate all of the new maps. It mainly works on the old maps. And these maps, despite being 20 years old, look 20 years in the future. It's some of the most beautiful technology that I have ever seen. And I love playing these maps. I don't even like to play them sometimes. Sometimes I just look at these maps in Quake 1 and how beautiful they are. I know they're old, I know the textures aren't as good as the ones today, but they are absolutely stunning. There is no game I've ever played that looks this good. I've played Cyberpunk, I've played the modern Doom games, I've played the Forza games. I've played these new games that are supposed to look really good, but nothing can ever encapsulate the true beauty that we found in Quake 1. With this RTX added into it, and these maps where the light stunningly emanates upon the player. Night Dive had that opportunity, but they abandoned it. Because they didn't care. None of them care. Remasters are, and always will be, a quick cash grab. We don't repaint the Sistine Chapel because we have better paints. We don't remake Citizen Kane because we have better cameras. But we find it okay to remake Silent Hill 2 because we have better GPUs. This is absolutely disgusting. These are lazy cash grabs, they are soulless, and they take away everything we love about these games, giving us nothing in return. Because if Bloober Team was capable of creating Silent Hill 2, they wouldn't need to be copying off of Silent Hill 2.